Greetings! I am Rob Chappers and welcome to the 3 important rules of lead guitar. And I'm really excited. It's shred samba. So we're getting ready to shred all the way through this month and say goodbye to 2020 because it sucked, mostly. And I'm excited to help as many of you as possible with some lead guitar tips, tricks and hacks that will get you playing some lead solos or just improving your technique or overall make you proud of your playing, which is something that I really want to do. The first thing to consider is a beginning, a middle, and an end to what you are doing. So whether you're playing a quick phrase, like a little sting during the verse of a track, or whether you're playing a solo or an outro piece, it's really important to consider where are you in the song and that you have a beginning, a middle, and an end to what you are playing. Now, very few guitar players, when they're playing or writing or working on little bits of lead guitar, actually consider that they are within a song. That might sound like a stupid thing to say, but it's true. They don't consider that they're in a song and they want to support and work with that piece of music. So even if I'm writing a lick, say for example, I've got a rhythm piece that goes like this. Now that's very clearly within A. And I want to write a real quick lick that gets me in and gets me out in just a few beats, nothing big, just it's working around the vocalist. And in my instance, I am the vocalist, so I have to jump in, jump out, and then get back on the mic. You need a beginning, middle, and end. You also need to consider whether what you're playing is a statement, a question, does it have an answer, or is it supported by a secondary statement? I'll give you an example of that. Here is a statement. That was a statement supported by a second statement. It wasn't answered per se. It felt like something was said and then something else was said afterwards. But in my example of I want to come up with something that brings me into the track, not necessarily kind of totally out of key and odd sounding, but something that brings me in with a statement. So I'm going to go for that, which is just a simple. I'm bending the B string. I'm using 11 to 9, 8th fret. I'm in A pentatonic. I'm using the 8th fret E string and 8th fret B string, and I'm just bending that B string while I hold down my E string. So it's a dual bend causing some interesting dissonance, especially if I use the best pedal ever made, which is the Jimi Hendrix Dunlop limited edition Octavia, which I use a lot of the time with a very thing from Snake Oil Finance. Hear that dissonance? That's kind of what I'm going for. So that's a statement, and then I want some kind of vocal phrased thing that sounds human and elicits an emotional response. So in this instance, I just went G string, and I went. Because human voices in speech will often make that inflection up on a question. Is that what you wanted? Did you want sugar with that? Do you know what I mean? It's a vocal thing I'm stealing. So, and then I need to end my sentence with something that takes me out of there. That is like a full stop or an exclamation mark on the vent. And for that kind of thing, I'm going to do me a juicy, chunky. Something like that. And all I've done is I've come down the scale and landed on the root, which I'm hoping is the chord that I then finished this particular part of the tune on. So started with an interesting piece that brings the listener's attention, vocal phrasing, something that elicits an emotional response, and then I've ended it with a juicy, chunky run. Beginning, middle, and end. Always consider a beginning, a middle, and an end. Otherwise, what you'll end up with are little bits that just are kind of licks you've thrown together without thought, things that you've played 100 times before, the mainstays of rock and roll. You know, you'd be doing... But there'll be no consideration of where you're going with it. That's important. Next thing, vocal phrasing. Now, I've touched upon this before, but I've got a really super secret, extra special, deep CIA level piece of info to drop on you, which I think is going to change your playing for the better and may even make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. When a vocalist sings a phrase, they have a disability. They have to breathe. So they can't continually sing and sing and sing and sing and sing and sing and sing unless they are Jack Black and they can do inward singing as well. But it's important to stop and pause for breath. Now, guitar players don't need to stop and pause for breath. But if you would just consider it while you're playing, that pause for breath will give you more of a vocal phrased feel. So here is an example of a bunch of licks without any pausing for breath. Now, yeah, it might have sounded kind of cool and there were some interesting licks and phrases in there and bits that kind of made me feel excited, but there was no pause for breath anywhere. And as a result, it's very difficult for the listener to get that input, put it in and relate to it, especially if they're not guitarists. Non-guitarists don't care about that kind of thing. They want to hear something that makes them feel something. So for example, when I'm doing this run, it would have been more effective to have done the first two and then paused on that one, for example. Giving it little breaks, little pauses for breath will make things feel way more human. Now, you don't have to sustain a note and call that a pause for breath. You could also literally stop playing. Pausing in between, it's like when you're eating your food. If you just keep eating and eating and eating, you kind of stop really tasting it. But if you put your fork down in between mouthfuls, you begin to really enjoy the food. And that's what we're trying to get across with this lead playing hack. Hack number 3, surprise them. And I mean surprise them in an interesting way. So someone once said, and I don't know who this was, but a successful tune or melody is one that makes the listener feel like they are in a familiar territory, maybe a familiar chord progression. And then it does a little tiny drift away from that norm so that they kind of get shocked and they like that feeling. And it's something that you want to consider when you are playing lead guitar, because you could stay strictly within key and you could adhere to the mode of the song. Maybe, you know, if we're in E minor pentatonic, then maybe you're going to stay strictly within E minor pentatonic. Or you could consider incorporating some outside notes or a kind of additional notes that will add to the flavor in a non-jarring way and give the listener a different kind of world. So let me give you an example. We're in E minor, and a lot of people would be using this. I just used an outside note by accident because I'm used to doing it, but I included what we call a 2. 2s are really useful. They're kind of non-invasive, but they come from a different place, away from pentatonic. Pentatonic just being root minus -3, -3 stamina. 4, 5, flat 7, octave. Sorry, I got slightly put off because I got a friend behind this camera who's taking photographs today to, is it to witness what I'm doing?
Storytelling.
Storytelling. He's storytelling what it is that I do. What's your name, masked cameraman?
Edward.
Hello, Edward. So, yeah, -3, that's a minor third, fourth, flat 5, flat 7, octave. But you can add a 2. So a 2 is just this note. F sharp. In the case of E anyway. That note adds a little extra something, but it's not invasive. It won't make the listener go, you know. And you can bend from it to a minor third, and it sounds really nice. Like that. You can also use things like a third, even when you feel like you really shouldn't use a third. So in a minor, E minor, you could be using a major third over a minor and just experiment with it. You'd be quite surprised how almost all the time that major third will sit there and just kind of work. It's an odd anomaly of blues rock, specifically blues rock, where thirds are kind of almost a little bit interchangeable. It's kind of weird, but just experiment with adding major thirds over minor chords and, you know, shifting them to minor thirds. And if you don't know much about minor thirds, major thirds and twos, there are thousands of YouTube videos that will teach you about intervals. And I've got a whole bunch of them on YouTube as well. Here is a small phrase that you can incorporate into your E minor blues that has that 2 interval in it. I'm just going to go from 12th fret to 14th fret. That's the 2. That was an up pick. I'm going to pick up again to the 15th fret B string. Back up to the 12th fret E. So. And then I'm going to roll that first finger to the 12th fret B string. Back to the 15th fret B. And then do whatever you want on the G string, but I'd like you to do it mainly on the 14th fret. So you get this. And then you can be like... And then you can be all like... And you'll have lots of fun with that. So... Chappers out.